75 years ago, around 4,000 people from Britain and Ireland left their home to fight against fascism in Spanish Civil War. A fight that seemed right for many people, teenagers or elders. A fight that gathered the world in Spain under the name of International Brigadas. There are only 3 British brigaders left alive and a few others around the world. Even if they do not trust their memory anymore, an experience of Spanish Civil War cannot be forgotten easily. For many of them, fighting against fascists was the best thing of their lives.
I didn't know anything about Spain, nothing. I didn't know what they were fighting about, anything. All I knew was there were many wounded and they needed help.
And I think this was the attitude of most of the International Brigade. They were there to fight fascism, and that's what they were there for.
Inspired by the true story of the surviving International Brigaders, composer Karl Lukovic created Goodbye Barcelona, a passionate musical about a British mother and son caught up in the Spanish Civil War.
Goodbye Barcelona, at the end they leave Barcelona, they've lost. Goodbye Barcelona, but still in a way triumphant. And I'd seen this article. This was about the surviving members of the International Brigades, and it had interviews with the people remembering. We interviewed him, that's Lou Kenton, Sam Russell, and I looked at this and I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. These people are in the 90s, and when they were in their 20s or earlier, in their teenagers, they decided to go and make a stand against fascism. It's sad and happy at the same time. They lost the war, but in a way they won because they made a stand that will last forever in a way, their example.
The fight against fascism for most of the British brigaders started when Sir Ozell Mosley planned a provocative march in East End of London on 4th of October 1936. On that day, the Jewish Chronicle warned Jews to keep away from the route of Black Shirt March and from their meetings. But nobody kept away. Shouting the Spanish Civil War slogan, "No pasarán," they shall not pass, more than 3,000 people from all over the country turned back an army of black shirts.
From impartial people, the police earn nothing but praise. So does Sir Philip Game in banning the march. Firm action by the Commissioner and his men undoubtedly averted bloodshed on a scale more terrible than London has ever witnessed.
Actually chose the East End of London because it was mainly a Jewish area that he went to, and he was but this actually is all this aroused a lot of opposition from all types of people, from liberals right through to the Communist Party, and the opposition to him was actually enormous.
They shall not pass, they shall not pass, no matter what they do. They shall not pass, they shall not pass, we'll never let them through. The black shirts go just where they choose. They beat my son, attack the Jews.
And it was because of this opposition to fascism being shown by the people of England, Britain, that I felt I had to take it further. I felt I had to fight fascism all over the world. When the fight in Spain had started just before this march, the International Brigade had formed a group, and I felt this is the only way I could show my feelings and do something.
Would you be willing to sacrifice everything? How can you leave when it's time to go? Everyone tells you to stay. Why should you go if there's so much to lose?
Can you dare to ignore what they say in the news?
But you still hear the sound, you can't seem to refuse. No, no, no Passerland, no, no, no Passerland. How would you feel when the...
For 23 years old, Thomas Waters, political reasons for volunteering didn't exist. He left his work and went to Spain as an ambulance driver.
In 1936, there was a big appeal in the periodicals and the newspapers asking for volunteers to go to Spain. Well, immediatamente, this was what I had been training for, and I volunteered. So eventually, after interviews, we went off. They decided to send an ambulance unit, and we went off from Glasgow, six ambulances and one fourgon, and we had to go all the way from Glasgow to Madrid, and we had to go the long way because the way the lines of between the two forces were made, we had to go the long way, which meant driving right down through France, Toulouse and Carcassonne, Perpignan, and into España, and Barcelona, Tarragona, Valencia, and Tontis, Madrid.
There was a weekend ticket for a very, very cheap rate. From London, by train from London to Portsmouth, and from Portsmouth by ferry to France, and by train to Paris. And in Paris, we were a small group of people gathered together to go on from there over to Spain. So from Paris, we were put on a coach to travel as far as the Pyrenees, and from the Pyrenees we were given a group of people also added to the party. Not all the English people. There was probably about 5 or to 8 from England, and the rest were from France and from Germany.
International brigaders were ordinary people with no war experience or Spanish knowledge
were met there by a couple of Spanish guys who led us over the Pyrenees. So at night time, when we got there and picked up by the guides, we went as far as the bottom of the Pyrenees, and there were the French customs there. And as we approached them, they turned round the other way and looked the other way. And anyhow, it took us the whole night. It was quite a climb over the Pyrenees. And the following morning, we reached Spain, the foot of the Pyrenees. We were met there by a truck, and we all gathered probably about 12, 14 of us were in the truck, and we were driven to Figueras. And from Figueras, there was other people had gathered there. So until there was a certain amount of people, we were then taken by road as far as the camp. There were some in the International Brigade who had fought in the war, in the First World War. Anyhow, we got together and we trained for a few weeks. I was on training to use a heavy Maxim, which was a Russian machine gun.
Very soon, when we arrived there, we asked the authorities for an interpreter. And we were a young man called Joaquin Usayan. He came to us, and he could speak good English. The problem was he had to learn how to speak Scottish English, because it's different. But he did very, very well. And he was with us all the time, yeah. And when I was oficial de transporte, and we had to have salvoconductors always for moving people and things from Madrid down to Valencia or Alicante, and he used to type out asking permission for a salvoconductor, and I had to sign it on. And with that then, you could go to the committee and get so many coupons to gasolina.
Lectures every morning. You are volunteers! You are worth 10 fascists! Going with hatred and determination! Ah! I'm practicing my Spanish. Aviación! Adelante!
And at that time, we were involved in picking up a lot of the International Brigade people, British and Scottish, all this, a lot of those then at that time, yeah. Many of them had been brought up from Albacete, and they had very little training, and they were pushed onto trucks and put right up, and they were wounded straight away, some of them. Very, very bad.
Is it French, is it Spanish or what? Need to know what to do when it jams in the dark. It's the only gun you've got. Raise the cover, turn the cases, free the barrel, wipe the grit. Fit the cartridge, in the chamber. We're going to Madrid tonight to fight!
Having fought quite a few skirmishes in and around, the front, after a couple of months, I was taken prisoner. And I don't know how, because there was a skirmish that we were fighting the night before, and it was quite a heavy skirmish, and I don't remember anything. But the following morning, I was laying on the ground, face down on the ground, and with the Italian troops, Italians and Moors, and I don't know how I got there.
David Lemon was captured with other members of the British battalion during fighting in Aragon in the spring of '38 and spent 6 months in the notorious prison camp of San Pedro de Cardeñas near Burgos.
They took a list of all our names, and every fourth name they've called out, which included me, to be exchanged with for Spanish prisoner of war that was in France.
And then we had the fighting in the streets of Madrid. And this was towards the end of 1936. Now, as you know, Madrid is in the middle of the peninsula, very high, up 2,000 feet up. And in August, it's hace mucho calor, and very uncomfortable. But in the winter, you get snow and ice and very, very cold. And the Madrileños were having a very, very bad time. There were very little food because the transport was only coming up with reinforcements and things for the army, and very, very little for the Madrileños. At the end of 1936, back to Glasgow. And we didn't know if that was the end. But after a week or two, they said, no, we were going to reorganize with more members and some more vehicles. Well, we had to get 2 new ambulances because one had been captured in the fighting in the streets, and my one was destroyed with bombs, so we got 2 new ones. We also got a small car, and then we got 2 big trucks, and they were loaded up with food and all sorts of things, and we had to go the long journey again back to Madrid. And we started then, where it was quiet, we were able to try to help some of the worst cases of the civilians in Madrid. And the Sanidad Militar, they knew this well, and they helped us when they could to let us do this work. And they tried to concentrate on heavily pregnant women and see them through their pregnancy, and also women with big, small families, and gave them just basic food, some basic cheese and biscuits and some dried fish, things like that, see. And so it went on. So our work was spreading between the army and the civilians to a small degree. There used to be a tremendous comparison when you left Spain and went into France, and a place full of food and everything. Oh, terrific. Whereas in Spain it was very difficult to get food at times. Yeah, very, very difficult.
When the Spanish Civil War finished, most of the surviving brigaders were already home. But here, their experience was not an act of bravery. They faced the government prejudices and they had to forget all the horrors they've seen.
Franco was in power for all those years, and people didn't want to churn up all those memories. There was a sort of pact of forgetting. And now people are really starting to remember. There's a lot of stuff coming out in Spain, as you know, and in this country, people don't necessarily know about these guys and the amazing bravery of these people and their sort of passionate commitment to a cause, and that's quite unusual.
If we just look at the British ones, effectively what they were doing was showing up the cowardice of the British government. They were underlining the fact that the British government was putting its class prejudices, if you like, before its strategic interests. We even have the case of Winston Churchill, who at the beginning of the Spanish Civil War was saying things like, I am an aristocrat. If I was Spanish, by now my family and myself would have been massacred. And by the end of the Spanish Civil War, was saying, we have to support the Democratic Republic, because if we don't, what is happening in Spain will be the first step towards a fascist takeover of the world. And in fact, what took Churchill 2.5 years to realise, the International Brigadas had realised in the first couple of days. And they went because they knew that if fascism was not stopped in Spain, it would very soon, the same bombers and fighters that were bombing Madrid and Barcelona and Valencia and Bilbao and Guerra, of course, would very soon be doing the same in Paris and London. And we know they were right. And for that reason alone, I mean, I think anything that we do to celebrate the astonishing courage of these men who went to fight for this with not the slightest hope of gain. And they were excoriated as communist trash. Many of them were not communists. They went in order to fight for democracy.
They understood all too well the threat posed by the spread of fascist ideologies across Europe. And despite the legacy of World War I, which had tinged much of the left with a strong pacifist streak, experience gained fighting Mosley's black shirts in Aberdeen, in Manchester, in London and beyond, had led these determined anti-fascists to conclude reluctantly that there was no other way. Liverpool docker and trade unionist Jack Jones. The awful realisation that black fascism was on the march right across Europe created a strong desire to act.
I'm in constant admiration of them for a start, because I'm thinking to myself, would I have done that? Would I have the courage? Because a lot of them went out to fight fascism, but because they were so badly equipped, because what happened was, as you know, there was a thing called the non-intervention policy, where the British and the French, mainly, who could have easily helped, decided they would not sell arms to Spain, so they were tacitly complicit in allowing fascism to grow.
During the war there, I tried just to take a few photographs of people and places, nothing about the war, because I was writing to my elder sister always, and I didn't want her to get worried about it. And I didn't take anything about the war. Some people often said, wasn't it terrible seeing the terrible things? But I said, well, it's the onlooker who sees the horror. When something terrible happened, it was our job to get going doing something. What do you do? What's the first thing you do? Well, this is in, and the horror of it doesn't strike you. Someone's just looking at it, sees it. But one of the worst things, I suppose, I saw was in the street fighting in Madrid, and they had one of these coming down from Carabanchel, down the road that takes you round to the Puente de Toledo, and the nationalists wanted to come down here, and they had these barricades like that every so often, you see. And we had, we went up there to the last one always, and we waited there for wounded, and we were coming back again when an officer stopped us. I had the commandante with me, and he said, "You've just lost one of your ambulances." Lost it? Yes. He said, it went right past the last barricade, and the guards didn't realize it. And they only realize it when they get there, and the nationalists. And he said the worst thing is they've shot them. The main thing I learned was the value of things, a better sense of values, to appreciate what you've got when you've got it.
I was seeing throughout the world. I'd already seen what the right wing could do to people. And then was all this problem with Russia. I could see that the same thing was happening to the far left or was happening to the far right. and that the people, you know, were not getting the best of either of them.
The International Brigaders who fought in Spain started their fight against fascism before many governments had realised its threat. Even if they couldn't defeat Franco, their lesson can have a page in history. Britain is celebrating them.